From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. James, how are you today? I'm glad to be back, and we get a chance to just talk, me and you, on this episode.
Always great to be here, Steve. Yeah, look forward to our chat. I think we got some good ones today. And how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I was, last episode was really fun with Craig Underwood, and it's just good to be back in the swing of things. And we're as we mentioned, we're both back from Infocom, so it's still some catching up to do. I'm sure you can
Oh
relate.
yeah.
So we took to ChatGPT for this episode. We've done this before, and figured we would try it again. And um, we're going to see what we think, as well as what the audience thinks about some of the feedback that we got. And one of the things that I always like to tell people is that um, AV programming and the role of a programmer is kind of misunderstood. So I wrote, what are some of the misconceptions about AV programming and the role of the programmer? And we got back some interesting information from ChatGPT, and I'll run through a few, and we can talk about which ones we agree with and which ones we feel are a little off base or need to be clarified some. So one was that AV programming is just like IT programming. Another one is that it's all about writing code. Uh, there's the third misconception is that AV systems are plug and play. The fourth is that any programmer can do AV programming. The fifth, similar to the second one, is about programming is the only skill needed. And the second one was that it's all about writing code. And uh, the sixth is AV programming is static. And the seventh is that it's a solitary job. So, what are your thoughts, James? Do you agree with this feedback? Is this something that we think is a good representation of what people don't understand about programming and programmers?
Yeah, to a point, I do agree with some of it. I want to actually hit on number seven, that solitary job, because that's one thing that I feel you and I are trying very hard to do is build that community, build so that AV programmers are not by themselves or feel like they are by themselves and that they're just sitting in front of the screen, that no one sees them or values what they're doing. So it's interesting that ChatGPT came back, and here I'll even read it. What it came back, it says, the image of a programmer working alone in front of a computer is common. However, AV programmers frequently collaborate with other professionals, such as AV designers, installers, and end users to ensure the system meets everyone's needs. And I agree. We definitely have talked about that in the past, how we need to interface with everybody, not just the code and the equipment.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that we could look at this from kind of two different perspectives. A lot of times, programmers are are the only one in a company that does what they do, so therefore it can be a bit lonely, or they may only be the only one at their level at a company. Although there are cases where that's not true. But to your point, it's programmer can't just do what they do by themselves. They may be the only one that does it, but they can't do it without interfacing with other people and depending on other people. And you can write the best code in the world, but if you're not doing it in conjunction with the design and being able to rely on good people in the field and having the accurate information to work with, you're never going to be successful.
But yeah, you definitely like I know we talked about that, being able to communicate and talk. Like I said, we're always in meetings, always talking to either clients, the end users, or system designers. So AV programmers have to have that skill of the communication skill. A lot of people call it soft skills, where they got to be able to communicate effectively with others who don't really speak their language. So it's a whole nother set of skills that AV programmers bring to the table.
And you actually find yourself a lot of times defending your work, um, and being able, and the only way to do so is to be able to explain to people why there's other factors that are outside of your control that are impacting what you do, and help them to understand where to look to be able to resolve those issues. And it requires understanding of all the different components of a system, which I think kind of speaks to some of the others, like programming is the only skill needed. If you don't know signal flow, if you don't know how to and troubleshoot, if you don't understand how the equipment that you're working with works, likely you're not going to be able to be successful. You could write the best code in the world, but it's not just about the code.
Oh yeah, I would say we do a lot of writing and all that stuff, but it's definitely not all about the code. I mean, I kind of feel the code is the fruit of our labor of what we do. But there's a whole bunch of work that goes on behind that to give us that code. You can almost chop it up to that whole iceberg motivation picture out there, and you can throw the tip of the iceberg is the code, and then it's interfacing with the users. It's understanding the equipment, understanding the needs, how protocols work. All that stuff is all underneath the surface.
100%, which kind of speaks to my favorite on this list is number 4. Any programmer can do AV programming, and so it says there's a belief that any skilled programmer can easily transition to AV programming. However, AV programming often requires specialized knowledge of AV equipment protocols and standards, and can be quite different from traditional software development. And there's a lot to take a look at there and unpack.
Is and this is where I'm like a little in agreement with that and a little not in agreement with that is, and what I mean is I feel it's easier for any traditional IT programmer to come into AV and learn the AV programming, but not the other way around. Like you can't take an AV programmer as easily and throw them in traditional software development. And yes, you take the software developer, they got to understand AV as the whole system, but I feel they can get the coding quickly. Um, so that's why I was saying you can almost take any programmer and make them AV programmer, but it really does take that cross training and knowledge sharing to get them up to speed.
For the I would agree with you there that the potential is there, but I've always kind of felt a little bit of a twinge when I would hear somebody say, "We'll just hire somebody out of school that's knows right code and they can come in here and do it, and this isn't that difficult." Where they could, if we were able to set them up to succeed and give them all of the other parts of the puzzle to just write code.
Yeah.
However, there's a lot more to it, as we'll explore.
Yeah, definitely a lot more to it, and I kind of chop it up as um, I'll admit I'm giving away maybe one of my secret sauce, which I actually stole from somebody else. Is when I'm looking at hiring student workers, I'm not really looking for tech skills. I'm looking for people who have worked in the food industry because I'm looking for people who can handle users. And if you deal with people's food, who people are very personal about their food, they're very particular, and you can work in the food industry and deal with being yelled at and all that stuff. I think you can handle the customer service side, and we can teach you the tech. I still feel the same with that with the software developers coming over to AVs. We can teach you the tech, and understanding the AV as a whole. It's knowing how programs written, the formation, the syntax, all that stuff is sometimes takes a little harder to teach. And having those software developers who already have that is a good benefit.
Sure. What I'll also argue, though, that and your tip is a really good one, because if you have the poise and the organization and the customer savvy, you're likely going to succeed in a lot of roles. Obviously, you need to have the aptitude and the desire and the commitment to doing AV. What I've found is that you take a software developer and you giving you they're used to having all the tools at their disposal. And then you put them into AV and you basically tell them, build this building and here's some Legos. You're
Lego, you're
and
more like
probably not
Lincoln
even all the
Logs.
pieces you need.
Yeah. No, you very valid there. I do feel that we do hinder our AV programmers compared to our software developers. But yeah, it's you're right. We throw them in a box and say, well, you got to be creative, but you got to follow these guidelines.
Here's your Legos. You might not have all the pieces, and we don't have the instructions, and we're not going to tell you exactly what you need to build either, but figure it out. That
Yeah, no.
while the ability for a software developer to do that is certainly there, whether they want to or not is a different question.
Oh, oh, and your favorite tools you use with your Legos, you can't use them here.
Right. So this is a good little exploration, because I'm always one to make sure that people don't underestimate what goes into programming. And I think that there's so much more than writing code, and that's something that is just a real misunderstanding in this industry. And any final thoughts or anything you wanted to add that would that maybe not be on the list?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. And including all our other episodes that we have talked about this kind of topic. So I think it was a good refresher to talk about it and good perceptive by ChatGPT.
Sure. The one thing I'll just touch on that we didn't mention about AV programming being static, and I that's something that is a real it's something that everybody needs to understand. And I learned very early on that an AV system is really like an organism, and it's always going to change and morph and have different needs. So it's something, yet another thing a programmer needs to take into consideration.
Oh, I agree. I found that one interesting because even software developing is never static. It's
That's true.
always having. So I found that one interesting that people think that, but I see it. I've seen people be like, well, we got the code on here that's been running for 20 years. We're good. Well, you change everything else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything that changes could impact the code.
Yeah.
Well, good place for us to wrap this one up. I'd like to hear what the audience has to say. So, hey, jump into our LinkedIn group. We've been talking about that for a few episodes, but we're looking to build this Ask the Programmer community. LinkedIn's a great place to do it. We have a LinkedIn group where we've been posting polls and questions and comments in our episodes, and let us know what you think about this and what you want to add, and we'll respond, and we'll have a further discussion. Until then, James, how can people get in touch with you and hear what you're up to?
You Google me, you'll find me. I'm on the socials, X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it. AV_James King. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm in the LinkedIn group, as Steve mentioned. Anything with HEPMA. Again, Google me, you'll find me.
Excellent. And for me, you can reach me on social media at Steve Greenblatt. Also like to share that my company Control Concepts is a supporter of the show. So if you want to be a supporter as well, please reach out to us. We'd like to have you. I'd like to mention your organization on Ask the Programmer. Control Concepts helps AV programmers by creating the components that are needed to either interface with products or interface with complex APIs and expand the capabilities of AV control programming. If you want to learn more, you can visit us at controlconcepts.net. Please leave us a rating, review, a comment, and we'd like to continue this dialogue and hear from you. We can be found on YouTube, which is getting a lot more views, which is really cool. And we've actually just passed a milestone. We have our 10,000th episode has been downloaded, and that's our audio version on your favorite podcast player. And until next time, this has been Ask the Programmer.